So I just finished the Callisto protocol the other night. Well, it was more like a stupid o'clock in the morning, but that's besides the point. It was a game I was excited for, a game I wanted to love and enjoy, but I ended up being disappointed with it. I love, and I'm a sucker for a good survival horror game. Started with Resident Evil 7, now, I'd played a few survival horror games before that, but I wasn't a fan of the genre. I just played the games I thought looked cool, like Dead Space 1 and 2. After playing 7, I played Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes. Resident Evil 2 was better than 3, don't at me. Then later, when Resident Evil 8 released in 2021, now I'm waiting and very excited for Resident Evil 4 remake. And I already know it's going to be better than Callisto Protocol, because that's not hard to achieve, is it?
This whole prison's infected.
Can't keep running from what you've done.
Now let's go finish this.
The game opens with a cutscene of one of the main characters exploring the site of a terror attack, and at this point you know nothing of the world the game is set in, at all. After that short brief cutscene, you're then introduced to the main and playable character, Jacob Lee. He's rather bland as a character for the most part, but he's likeable enough. Then there's Max Barrett, Jacob's friend or brother or whatever. It's not really explained who he is to Jacob at all, and he dies in like 5 minutes anyway, so who cares? I certainly don't. You're then pushed into a very basic tutorial of the controls and moving around the game world, because our two characters heard something in the cargo hold. Pretty basic video game stuff. Nice. After this section, you're then attacked by a group, and oh no, what's this? One of the attackers is the girl from the first cutscene. Okay, interesting, why is she now trying to kill me? Your ship crashes on Callisto, and Max dies just before help arrives. Emphasis on the help, by the way. You're saved by one of the prison guards, Captain Leon Ferris. Yeah. He's immediately an asshole to you, for no reason, and is ordered to bring you and the girl in as prisoners. Oh, her name is Danny Nakamura. Kinda forgot to give her name, because this game is just... yeah. You're then taken in and made to be an inmate of this prison called Black Iron Prison. You get an implant thing that acts as your health indicator, more on that later. You're thrown into your cell and then wake up to everything going to shit. I don't lie, the opening for this game is... or feels kind of rushed. I don't know. I just didn't really like the opening at all, really. Like, you're just sort of thrown into the deep end with no explanation, which a lot of games do, yes, but like, I don't know, it's just like, this game just doesn't really have any world building, I don't think. Not in my opinion, anyway. Now, when, like, the actual game starts, and you have agency to move around and explore and whatnot. By the way, I choose the word explore, and use that very lightly. Everything is on fire, literally. People are dying, and it's a shit show. You then meet another inmate called Elias Porter, and honestly, he's a pretty good character. He's also British, so yeah, British gang. We love that. He says bruv a lot. Very stereotypical. You team up with him and help each other to try and escape the prison alive. And to avoid all the oogly boogly space zombies that are ready to fist you passionately and violently. No, like, really violently. And fast forward not too far, and you have your first fight with some inmates. And this fight acts as a quick time event, tries to teach you the dodge mechanic badly. Yeah, quick time events as a tutorial sort of thing. Not great. After killing those two goons, you fight your first space zombie with a melee weapon. No gun, just a melee weapon. And then you get your first hint of this game not really being a true survival horror, but more of a beat-em-up brawler game, as if you're facing off against Mike Tyson himself, and only he would literally tear you a new one. Now at this point, I'm not going to go into what you do in the game in too much detail, skim over the events that happen, or anything like that. I'm going to tell from this point on, the game just falls flat on its face. Combat. Combat in this game is a chore. The game wants you to melee fight enemies most of the time and build up a combo which will then open them up to being staggered, and you can then auto aim onto them and get a few free shots off on them once you eventually get guns. Now, 1v1ing, 1v2ing fights, they're fine. Not really, like, much of a chore. It's doable. But once it starts to throw groups at you, the whole idea of the melee combat falls apart, especially with this game's flawed and annoying dodge/block mechanics. Now, to dodge, you simply move the movement stick or key and hold it to the left or right, and Jacob will automatically dodge, if it decides it wants to work and you don't get backhanded by a oogly boogly. And to block, you just have to be moving backwards and he will automatically block, lowering the amount of damage you take. And if you have a stun baton upgrade, it opens them up to a counter attack. I think the counter only really works on smaller enemies, not some of the bigger ones. I don't really remember too much, not gonna lie. Movement in this game is so slow and janky and clunky, and I won't lie, at times the original Resident Evil 4, which is a much better game by the way, felt much better to control in the middle of combat than this game, and that game came out in 2005. When you're trying to brawl with multiple enemies at once, it is not fun, and just frustrating, because you're trying to see your health and the charge of the grip battery in the heat of combat, and sometimes it can be quite difficult to see, or at least it was for me anyway. Like, right in the heat of combat, yeah. Also, you can just be ganked by some nonce off screen, and it's just... yeah, I don't like it. It's not great. The gunplay is good enough. Not the worst I've played in a video game. It's alright. It's sometimes still somewhat satisfying, I guess. You also get a telekinesis tool called the Grip, and it lets you pick up enemies, some random objects, explosives, and small item crates. Oh, and with the enemies, you can also pick them up and fucking yeet them into spikes. It's pretty cool. There's 5 guns in total. The hand cannon, which is the first gun you get. Skunk gun, it's a pocket shotgun and probably the best gun in the game. Riot shotgun. Tactical pistol. Tactical pistol is a medium rectified full auto pistol. It's not that good. The assault rifle, and then the stun baton as your melee weapon. Each weapon can be upgraded with Callisto credits as well as the Grip. Well, the atmosphere in this game is good, but any tension and anxiety the game tries to build up is almost always a letdown, because honestly, this game just isn't scary at all. Sure, it might get a few cheap jumps out of you, but as you're exploring, it just isn't scary. Like, graphically, the game looks brilliant, even on my PC with some settings turned down or off, and with the AMD FSR 2.0 thing turned on to the balance setting at 1080p, and the game most of the time looked stunning, to be fair. It's a really good looking game, but the performance on the PC is a joke. Bearing in mind I am running a 1070, an i7-8700, 16GB RAM, but I've heard that more powerful PCs were having lagging and stuttering and frame issues as well. But after the patch they released for the PC on December 3rd, the performance did improve. It still wasn't the best, but that could have just been my system at that point. If you do decide to play this game, I'd suggest getting a console version, as I've heard they run a lot better, especially on the PS5. Now, I won't go too much into the detail in the story, like I said, but the story isn't too interesting at all, really. It's your typical unfortunate main character thrown into a situation he wasn't supposed to be in, and now he's trying to survive, escape, and uncover the truth. I will say, towards the end, it does start to feel very Resident Evil-y, in a way. You'll just sort of... You'll get, if you play Resident Evil, you get what I mean. If you play this game, it's pretty cool. I kind of like that feeling, I'm not gonna lie. I love Resident Evil. Now, there's 2 chapters in the game that stand out to me. Chapter 5, called Lost, and Chapter 6, called Below. Chapter 5 is the best chapter in the game, without a doubt. You're out on Callisto's surface in the middle of a storm, and you can barely see in front of you. Except you can see the storm in the distance. It looks really good. Like, it is breathtaking how good it looks. Looks awesome. The atmosphere of this chapter is the best in the whole game as well. The objectives are the best as well. Like, I don't think there's a single damn moment where you have to find some fuse to open a door like you do in all the other chapters every, like, 15 to 20 minutes, it feels like. And then after getting through chapter 5, you make it to chapter 6. Well, obviously that's how counting works. Idiot. This chapter starts off strong. It's a primarily stealth-based chapter, and at first it's cool and tense. Try not to be detected by a new variant of the Oogly Booglies. But sadly, this chapter just starts to drag on, and I feel it outstays its welcome by a lot. Like, it got to the point where I was just, whenever I felt like I didn't have to be around the new Oogly Booglies and space zombies, I was like, oh, okay, cool, I can move on. No more slowly crouch walking everywhere. But then, oh look, something happens and more of them jump out, and even your character starts to, like, get annoyed. It's like, ugh. It just lasts too long, that chapter does. Though they never show up after that chapter, which is good, so it makes that chapter feel more unique compared to the others. I wanted to like this game, but with this very meh combat, uninteresting story and characters, and monsters that aren't that cool, apart from one variant which is cool, it could go invisible. But the terrible PC performance, and it not being scary, and it also not having many survival horror aspects, like it's a very light survival horror experience. There's a little bit of, like, item management, but it just feels more like a chore in this game, so like an actual thing you need to do. It's just the very definition of a very average game, which is a shame.